She said it's just a phase, while hiding a weekend trip with another man from me. I had her email open on my laptop when she said it, the blue glow from the screen lighting up the kitchen like some kind of interrogation lamp. My hands were still wet from doing the dishes. I'd dried them badly, so water was tracking down my wrists and onto the touchpad as I scrolled. The booking confirmation was right there. 2 nights, coastal town 3 hours away, 1 queen bed, 2 guests in bold. She stood on the other side of the bench, with her arms folded over her hoodie, phone clutched in her hand, eyes darting between my face and the screen like she couldn't decide which one required more acting. It's just a phase, she repeated, a little sharper this time, as if volume could turn it into a fact. I told you I need some space, some fun, something that isn't you and this apartment and your routine. You're blowing this way out of proportion, Alex. My brain felt like it was lagging. I could see the words, process each letter, but the meaning refused to land. I looked from the 2 guests' line to her face and back again. My heart was pounding in that hollow, almost echoing way where you feel it in your throat more than your chest. I could smell the dish soap on my hands, that fake lemon scent, and for some reason it made me feel sick. You booked a phase at the seaside with who exactly? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Because unless Booking.com has rebranded self-discovery as a +1 package, someone else is in on this. She rolled her eyes and let out this ugly little laugh that didn't reach her eyes. Oh my God, you're so dramatic, she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear like she always did when she was cornered. It's literally just a weekend. I need to get out of my head out of this. It doesn't mean anything. It's not that deep. It was a Thursday night in late autumn, and we'd been together for almost 4 years. My name's Alex, I'm 30, she's 29, and for this post I'll call her Emma. We'd been living together in our small, slightly damp apartment for a year and a half, the kind with loud neighbors and a shower that took 10 minutes to heat up, but it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. I'm writing this because I honestly don't know if I'm losing my mind, if I missed every sign, or if it's just a phase, is the worst excuse I've ever heard for emotionally checking out of a relationship while keeping a foot in the door and a suitcase packed for someone else. Emma and I met in uni in this painfully cliché way that felt like fate at the time. It was second year, group assignment for a media unit I only took because I needed elective credits, and she was the loud, opinionated one who actually read the rubric. I was the quiet engineering guy who just wanted clear instructions and a pass mark. We ended up in the same group, and she immediately took over the planning like she'd been waiting her whole life to run a small underpaid team. Okay, so, no one's doing the last minute. All-nighter thing, she said at our first meeting, stabbing her pen at the air. We divide, we conquer, we actually rehearse. I'm not getting a credit because someone else panics. Her intensity should have annoyed me. Instead, I was fascinated. After one late library session where everyone else bilayed early, it was just the 2 of us at a table under those awful fluorescent lights. I was fiddling with a circuit diagram for another class, half listening to her complain about her retail job, when she suddenly stopped mid-rant and stared at my page. Is that maths? She asked, wrinkling her nose. Technically it's an op-amp circuit, I said. Yeah, that's going to be a no from me, she said, but she was smiling. So what's your actual plan? Like 5 years from now, where are you? I shrugged, working I guess, hopefully not living with my parents. Maybe a small apartment, a dog, paying off a car that's slightly too expensive for me. She laughed. Wow, dream big, Alex. What about you? I asked. She leaned back in her chair and looked up at the ceiling like the answer might be written there. I want movement, she said finally. I don't know what that looks like. New cities, new people projects that change, a job that isn't just the same 9 to 5 forever. I'm terrified of waking up one day and realizing I accidentally built a life I hate just because it was the default. Back then that sounded deep and romantic and very Emma. What I didn't understand was that sometimes people say exactly who they are in the first 5 minutes, and we just choose to hear the parts that fit what we want. I heard new cities, movement, change, and thought, cool. She'll drag me out of my shell and we'll travel sometimes. I ignored the part where she was terrified of accidentally building a stable life. I was the stable life. We started dating a few months after the group project was done. She dumped her then boyfriend, a musician who lived in a share house that always smelled like weed and forgotten dishes, and almost immediately slid into my life like she'd been scheduled. Being with her at first was like suddenly finding color in a black and white film. She knew every new bar opening, had opinions on obscure bands, dragged me to markets and festivals and random events she found on Facebook. With her, my world got bigger. With me, her world got more grounded, I guess. She'd say things like, "You're the only person I've dated who doesn't feel like an explosion waiting to happen," and I took that as a compliment. We moved in together when we were 28, after my old housemate moved interstate and her lease was ending. The apartment we found wasn't anything special, but it had good light and a tiny balcony that she filled with plants until it looked like a jungle corner. We bought mismatched furniture off Facebook Marketplace, spent a weekend arguing over where the cooch should go, adopted a grumpy rescue cat called Bowie. It felt like we were building something real. The phase talk started about a year into living together. At first, it was about her career. She worked in social media and marketing for a mid-size agency, which meant her hours were technically 9 to 5, but in reality were more like, whenever a client decides to have a meltdown about engagement. She'd come home exhausted and flop face first into the cooch, complaining about how pointless it all felt. "I'm literally spending my 20s inventing new ways to sell protein powder," she groaned one night, her voice muffled by a cushion. "This can't be my life." "It doesn't have to be forever," I said, rubbing her back. "You could go freelance or do something else. You've been talking about writing properly or photography." "Yeah," she said. "Maybe I just need to ride this phase out, save some money, then bail." That was the first time she used the word. Back then, phase meant burnout. Frustration, the normal quarter-life crisis stuff most of us go through. Then it crept into other things. "I'm just going through a social phase," she'd say when she started going out more with her work friends. "Everyone's single, everyone's always doing something. I don't want to be the lame girlfriend who's always like, 'Sorry, my boyfriend is waiting at home with Netflix and pasta.'" For the record, I wasn't waiting. I mean, I was physically in the apartment, but I wasn't sitting by the door like some kind of golden retriever. I had my own friends, my own hobbies, my own life. But slowly, her world was becoming one I wasn't invited into, and phase was the wrapper she put around any behavior that made me uncomfortable. The first real red flag was a guy named Tom. Tom was a friend from work, introduced early in the new job stories. She started at a different agency, a cool one this time, open plan office, kombucha on tap, the whole thing. Within a week, I'd heard about the office dog, the weird boss, and Tom. "Tom's in copywriting," she said one night over dinner. "He's hilarious. We were bitching about the pitch deck for like an hour today. He's like, the only other person there who gets how stupid some of this is." I did the polite boyfriend thing. "Nice," I said. "Glad you've got someone to talk to." But Tom kept popping up. "Tom sent me this meme, I have to show you." Tom and I grabbed lunch. He's the only one who leaves the building in the daytime like a rebel. Tom says he's going to quit and move to Berlin. He's so brave. You know how when you hear a word too many times in a short period, it starts to sound like noise? That was Tom. I wouldn't have thought much of it if not for how secretive she started getting about her phone. We used to scroll on the cooch, trading reels and posts, phones wide open. Now, whenever a notification popped up, she flipped her phone face down. If I walked past while she was mid-text, the screen dimmed suspiciously fast. One night, her phone buzzed on the coffee table while she was in the shower. I looked over out of habit more than curiosity. The preview said, "Tom, so about that weekend." I didn't touch it. I stared at the message like I could will the rest of the sentence into existence. About that weekend what? When she came out of the bathroom in my oversized t-shirt, damp hair dripping down her neck, I was still sitting there, the phone glaring up between us. "Your boyfriend texted," I said, trying to sound light. She snorted. "Which one?" "Tom," I said. She grabbed the phone quickly, her eyes flicking to the notification and then away. "He's not my boyfriend," she said. "He's gay, relax." "He's gay," I repeated. That was the first I'd heard of that. "Yes, Alex," she said, rolling her eyes. "Do you think you're the only man allowed to talk to me?" "No," I said. That's the first time the sexuality disclaimer's come up." "Wow," she said. "You really are in a jealous phase, huh?" Phase? I let it go. It felt petty to keep pressing. Maybe he was gay. Maybe he was. Either way, I told myself, if I had a real problem I should talk about how I felt, not interrogate names. We tried for a while to talk like adults. One Sunday morning, we were having coffee on the balcony, Bowie asleep in a patch of sunlight between our chairs. I'd been turning the whole thing over in my head all week, deciding that if I wanted this relationship to work, I had to be vulnerable, not accusatory. "I feel like we're out of sync lately," I started. "Like we're living parallel lives in the same house." She stared down into her mug. "Because I go out more." "Partly," I said, "but it's more that I don't know where you are half the time, even when you're here. You're on your phone, you're in your head, you talk about work and parties and people I've never met. I don't want to be the ball and chain boyfriend in the background of your real life." She sighed, leaning back. "I told you I'm just restless," she said. "Everyone at work is single or living this crazy spontaneous life. and I come home to you, the cooch, the same dinner rotation. It's nice, but it's heavy sometimes. Do you want to be single? I asked. She hesitated, which hurt more than a no would have. I don't want to lose you, she said, but I also don't want to wake up at 35 and realize I never did anything stupid. I went from bad guys straight to you. It's like I skipped the wild years. Maybe I'm just having them late. I swallowed. Wild years usually don't come with a live-in boyfriend, I said. Exactly, she said. That's why it feels complicated, but it's just a phase. I just need to get this out of my system. Go out more, flirt a little, feel wanted. It doesn't mean I don't love you. There it was again, just a phase, like acne, or bangs, something mildly inconvenient that would pass if we just waited it out. Again, I tried to be understanding. I remembered being 23 and stupid, making reckless decisions because consequences felt far away. But we weren't 23, we were paying bills together. We talked about maybe getting a dog when we moved somewhere bigger. Just a phase sounded a lot like, I want to do what I want and not think too hard about how it affects you. The weekend trip came up a few weeks after that conversation. At first, it seemed harmless. My mental health is in the bin, she announced one Tuesday as she dropped her bag just inside the door. I need the ocean, or a forest, or both. Hi, how was your day? I said dryly. She walked over, kissed my forehead absent-mindedly, and flopped onto the couch. Sorry, hey, hi, she said. I'm serious though, I need to get out of the city even for a couple of days. Lena said we should do a girls' weekend somewhere cheap. Just wine, cheese, and me crying about capitalism on a balcony. That actually sounds nice, I said. I could look at albums. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away too quickly. I meant like just us girls, she said. You should have a boys' weekend or whatever though. Go drink terrible beer with Sam and complain about me. I laughed, but something in my chest tightened. Okay, I said slowly. When were you thinking? She pulled out her phone and started tapping. Lena can do the last weekend of the month, she said. She has a shoot the week after, so that's perfect. I'll book something near the water. It'll be cheap if we split it. I nodded, trying to push down the little flare of insecurity. A girl's weekend was normal, healthy, even. Partners don't have to do everything together. I repeated that to myself like a mantra. Over the next week, she mentioned the trip in passing. We should budget a bit. I'm paying for the Airbnb. I need to get a new swimsuit. I'm not being seen in last year. I told Tom he can't die at work while I'm gone. I'm not covering his accounts. It all sounded fine on the surface. But there were small cracks. One night I walked into the study to grab a charger and saw her laptop open on the desk. She was in the shower. I could hear the water running. Normally I wouldn't even glance at her screen, but the subject line at the top of the email caught my eye. Your booking for this weekend is confirmed. My stomach dropped. This weekend. Her trip was next weekend. Curiosity got the better of me. I leaned closer. It was the same dates she'd mentioned. The this was from the perspective of the booking site, not my calendar. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Then my eyes moved a couple of lines down. Property, coastal loft retreat, 1 queen bed. Guests, 2. Check-in Friday 3 p.m. 2 guests. Again, I didn't touch anything. I didn't scroll, didn't click. I stepped back like the laptop was a snake. My heart was hammering so hard my vision fuzzed at the edges. Could it still be fine? 2 guests, her and Lena, of course. Why would you book a place for one person when you're going with a friend? Except, everything in me knew that wasn't what was happening. It was like reading a sentence where all the letters were in the right order, but the meaning was wrong. I went back to the kitchen and pretended to do something with the kettle. The shower switched off. A minute later, Emma came out wrapped in a towel, humming some song from the radio. Hey, I said, my voice coming out higher than I wanted. You booked the Airbnb. She froze for a fraction of a second. Yeah, she said too casually. Why? Just wondering where you picked, I said. Ocean or forest? Ocean, she said. Little town along the coast. It was the only place left that wasn't like $1 million. Nice, I said. You and Lena will have fun. Yeah, she said. We need it. Later that night, I lay awake listening to her breathe next to me and tried to convince myself that 2 guests just meant 2 women plotting to drink cheap wine and complain about men. I almost believed it, until the next day when I saw her home screen. We were sitting on the couch, half watching some documentary. Her phone buzzed, she picked it up, and in that split second before she opened the message, I saw the preview on the notification. Tom, can't wait to get you out of the city for a bit. My whole body went cold. She opened the message quickly, the preview disappeared. She typed back something fast, screen angled ever so slightly away from me. I didn't say anything then. Maybe I should have. Maybe the fact that I didn't is why we ended up at the kitchen bench days later with the booking confirmation between us. But in that moment, I felt this wave of shame, like I'd been snooping, even though the message literally flashed in front of my face. I didn't want to be the paranoid boyfriend. I didn't want to be the guy who says, "You can't go away with your coworker," and prove all her fears about being trapped right. So I waited. I hoped she'd bring it up herself. "Hey, by the way, Lena Bielade and I invited Tom because we're both burnt out and cheap and it's platonic and please don't freak out." That would have still sucked, but at least it would have been honest. She didn't. Instead, she got more irritable whenever the trip came up. On Wednesday night, 2 days before they were leaving, I tried again. We were in bed, lights off, Bowie curled into the back of my knees. "Have you sorted the drives?" I asked. "Like, are you taking my car or Lena's," she said too quickly. "She likes driving." "Okay," I said. "Can you send me the address, just in case you need me to come get you, car trouble or something?" She huffed. "You make everything sound like a disaster scenario." "I'm literally offering to be your emergency contact," I said. "Sorry if that's annoying. It just feels like you don't trust me," she replied. "Do you?" I asked. "Do I what?" "Do you trust you?" I said into the dark. She didn't answer for a long time. When she did, her voice was small. "It's just a phase, Alex," she whispered. "I'm not going to blow up my whole life over a couple of nights away." The problem was, she already had a lit match in her hand. On Thursday, while she was at work, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and tried to focus on some documentation I had to write. My brain refused to cooperate. I opened my email, then my calendar, then Reddit, then back to my email, cycling through windows like a screensaver. On a stupid, self-destructive impulse, I typed her email address into my Gmail search bar. We don't share accounts or anything, but we've both used my laptop before to quickly check things. Sometimes it auto-populates fields. I looked at the little profile bubble in the top right corner where my face was, then at the Add Another Account option, then closed the tab. I made it exactly 10 minutes before I opened it again. My hands were shaking. I told myself if I found nothing, I'd feel like an asshole, but at least I could relax. If I found something, better to know now than after she'd spent the weekend God knows where with God knows who. Her email was still logged in. She must have checked it on my laptop the night before and forgotten to sign out. One click and I was looking at her inbox. My heart was in my mouth. There near the top was the booking confirmation I'd seen on the study screen. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. Same details, same dates, same coastal loft retreat, waves on your doorstep. Fluff. I scrolled down. Guests 2. Primary guest Emma W. Additional guest Tom C. The room swam. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles hurt. There it was in black and white, not Lena, not the girls. Tom. I could have stopped there. That was enough information to end a relationship, or at least to demand serious conversation. But the part of me that had lived with slow, creeping doubt for months wanted context. Wanted to know if this was the first time, the only time, or the latest in a pattern I'd been too trusting to see. I searched Tom in her inbox. Work threads came up: client stuff, campaign approvals, boring CC'd chains. Then another thread title caught my eye. Ray this weekend. It was between her personal email and his. I clicked. Tom, still down for escaping this hellhole on the 28th. Emma, absolutely. If we don't leave, I'm going to scream in a meeting and get fired, lol. Tom, would pay to see that, tbh. Emma, you'll just have to settle for me ranting on a balcony with cheap wine, Tom. I can live with that. No Lena this time. Emma, Lena, and no, she can't get away that weekend. Tom, so just you and me then. Dangerous. Emma, relax, it's just a phase, remember. There it was again, a joke now, a private code between them. My stomach rolled. I didn't scroll further. I closed the laptop with more force than necessary and just sat there, my breathing loud in the small kitchen. Outside, a kid was yelling in the neighbor's yard. A car door slammed. Someone upstairs dropped something heavy. The normal sounds of the building carried on like my world hadn't just shifted 2 inches to the left. I wish I could say I calmly waited for her to get home, rehearsed what I was going to say, kept my composure. The truth is, I paced the apartment for an hour, sat down, stood up again, contemplated packing a bag and leaving before she came back. In the end, I didn't want to give her the narrative of "I left because you're mean" about my fun phase. I needed her to see what she was doing. When she walked through the door that evening, juggling her tote bag, a coffee cup, and an armful of mail, I was already at the kitchen bench with my laptop open on the email. "Hey," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Why do you look like someone died?" "Because something did," I said. My voice sounded flat and strange. "Come here." She frowned but walked over, dropping the mail onto the counter. "What's going on?" I turned the laptop around so she could see the screen. Her eyes flicked down, took in the email header, the body, the two guests line. I watched the color drain from her face in real time. "Alex," she started, "I can." "Explain," I finished for her. "Yeah, I'd love to hear it." She opened and closed her mouth a couple of times, like a fish. Then she straightened her shoulders, wiped her face with her hand, and slipped into this familiar defensive posture. "It's just a phase," she said, like it was a magic spell. "I told you I'm going through something. I need time, space. I need to figure myself out away from your expectations." "With Tom," I said, pointing at the name. "Alone, in a one-bedroom Airbnb for 2 nights. "He's my friend," she said. "He gets it. He understands the burnout, the feeling trapped. It's not about him, it's about me." "Good," I said. "Then you won't mind cancelling before you go, since the phase is apparently portable and not person-specific." She glared at me. "That's not fair." "What part?" I asked. "The part where I'm asking my girlfriend not to go on a romantic seaside getaway with a coworker who's been flirting with her for months, or the part where you lied and said you were going with Lena?" "I didn't lie," she said. "I just omitted details I was going to tell you." "When?" She didn't answer. Instead, she crossed her arms tighter around her chest. "You're making this into something it's not," she said. "You're acting like I've already cheated. I haven't." "Have you kissed him?" I asked. She flinched. "No," she said, too fast. "Do you want to?" Silence. I felt something crack then, not dramatic, not catastrophic, more like the sound of ice shifting on a frozen lake. A hairline fracture that's been there for a while finally making itself heard. "You keep calling this a phase like it's an external thing happening to you," I said quietly. "Like puberty, or Mercury in retrograde. It's not, it's choices. You're choosing to keep texting him when you know how it looks. You're choosing to hide plans. You're choosing to risk what we have." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you," she said. "Then why does everything you do lately feel like a test of how much I'll tolerate?" I asked. She wiped her cheek impatiently. "Because I don't know who I am without you," she said, "and that scares me. And Tom, he reminds me of who I was before all this." She gestured around at the apartment, before rent and bills and routines and feeling like every day is a repeat. "So your solution is to recreate your 20s with him, while keeping me on standby?" "It's not like that," she insisted. "I just need to know if this restlessness is something I can fix with you, or if I'm just not built for this settled thing yet." "That sounds exactly like you want to audition other lives and decide if you want to come back," I said. "I'm not a backup plan M." She leaned on the bench, shoulders slumping. "Then what do you want me to do?" she asked. "If I cancel, I'll resent you. If I go, you'll hate me. I can't win." "You don't have to win," I said. "You just have to not deliberately hurt me." We went in circles for a while. She apologized, then immediately justified. I said I understood feeling restless, then pointed out that secrecy made it impossible to trust her. At one point she said, "Nothing's even happened yet," like she deserved points for not having physically cheated before the trip. Finally, I took a breath and laid out my boundary as clearly as I could. "If you go on this trip with him," I said, "knowing how I feel, knowing you lied about it, knowing you're already half in emotionally, I will take that as you choosing this phase over our relationship. I'm not threatening you, I'm just telling you what my line is." She stared at me for a long time. I could see the storm behind her eyes. Fear, stubbornness, that wild hunger she described for movement, for something else. "You're asking me to choose," she whispered. "I'm asking you to be honest about the choice you already made," I said. She looked down at the laptop again, at the email, then closed the lid slowly. "I need to think," she said. "Okay," I replied. "The booking's in 2 days, think fast." She didn't sleep in our bed that night. She took a blanket and slept on the couch, claiming she needed space to hear her own thoughts. I lay awake in the dark listening to the distant sounds of traffic and her occasional movement, feeling like someone had rewired our home overnight. The next day she was distant but polite. We moved around each other carefully, like roommates. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart leapt into my throat. I half expected a cancellation email notification, even though it would have gone to her address, not mine. In the afternoon, she came into the study where I was working and sat down on the edge of the desk. I've decided to go, she said. I stared at her. With him? With him, she confirmed, voice trembling but resolute. I have to know. I have to see if this feeling is just me being dramatic, or if I really can't do this anymore. This as in us. She swallowed, yeah. Something inside me went very still. The panic, the pleading instincts all quieted. It was like a clarity switch flipped. Okay, I said. She blinked. That's it. That's it, I said. You know what it means. Tears spilled over now. I don't want to break up, she said. You just want to go away with another man, see how it feels, and maybe come back if it turns out your phase was just seaside air, I said, not unkindly. I get it, I actually do, but I respect myself too much to sign up for that. You're being so final, she whispered. You're the one packing a bag, I said. Sometimes we don't get to test drive decisions without consequences. She left the next morning while I was out getting coffee, almost like she didn't want to face the actual moment of walking out the door with her suitcase. When I came back, her overnight bag was gone. A note on the bench said, I'll call you when I'm back. Please don't do anything stupid. I laughed when I read that, not a happy laugh, one of those disbelieving huffs that feels more like a cough. Please don't do anything stupid, as if deciding to stay faithful to someone was the stupid option in this scenario. I didn't text her all weekend. I didn't check her location, even though every fiber of me wanted to. I turned off my laptop, went for long walks, let Sam drag me to a movie and beers just so I wouldn't sit alone counting the hours. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart spiked, but it was never her. She texted once on Saturday night. Emma, are you okay? I stared at it for a long time, then replied. Yeah, you. No response. When she came back on Sunday evening, I was at the kitchen table again, this time with no laptop, just a cup of tea gone cold. She wheeled her little suitcase in, looking sunburnt and exhausted. There was sand on her shoes. Hey, she said, voice small. Hey, I replied. We stared at each other for a long moment. How was your phase? I asked. She winced. Can we not do this with jokes? I'm trying not to yell, I said. Sarcasm is the next best thing. She dropped onto the chair opposite me. It was confusing, she said. Fun and awful, and I cried a lot. And I don't know anything more than I did before except that I'm a shitty person. Did you sleep with him? I asked. She closed her eyes. Yes, she whispered. I felt the word hit me physically, like a fist to the sternum. Even though I knew, even though I'd prepared for it, hearing it out loud was different. Okay, I said, because what else was there? She opened her eyes again, tears spilling over. It didn't feel like I thought it would, she rushed on. It wasn't some magic epiphany. I missed you the whole time and I felt guilty, and half the time I was thinking, what the fuck am I doing? And the other half I was trying to convince myself this was necessary to figure things out. It was like watching myself from outside. That's what you chose, I said, to watch yourself burn down your life in the name of self-discovery. I know, she said, sobbing now. I know, and I hate myself, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know where to go from here. You go, I said quietly, that's where. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You're not even going to consider working through it. You didn't make a mistake at a work party, I said. You didn't get drunk and kiss someone randomly. You booked a trip, lied about who you were going with, argued with me when I found out, went anyway knowing it would end us, and then slept with him. That's not a mistake, Em. That's a series of decisions. I thought maybe we could do therapy, she said weakly. Couples counseling. Did that idea occur to you before or after the AMB? She looked down at her hands. I'm not saying you can't go to therapy, I added. You should, I probably will too. But I'm not willing to keep being the person you hurt in the name of finding yourself. You said this was just a phase. Maybe it is. Maybe in 6 months you'll look back and cringe. But I refuse to be the collateral damage you expect to stick around out of loyalty. She cried harder then, ugly sobs that made her whole body shake. Part of me wanted to go around the table, put my arms around her, comfort her like I'd always done. Another part of me, the part that had read those emails, that had watched her choose him, held me in my seat. I'll pack some stuff and stay at Lena's, she said eventually, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. We can talk about the logistics later. Okay, I said. She went to the bedroom, dragging her suitcase behind her. I heard drawers opening, hangers scraping. Bowie darted past me and hid under the couch, spooked by the sound. Before she left, she stood in the doorway with her bag and looked around the apartment. The plants on the balcony, the dent in the couch, the photo of us at my sister's wedding still magneted to the fridge. I did love you, she said quietly. I still do. I don't know how to love anyone without fucking it up. I believe you, I said, but love isn't a hall pass. She nodded, tears falling again, and then she was gone. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've gone through all the classic stages everyone talks about on here. Shock, anger, bargaining with myself, maybe it wasn't that bad, maybe I overreacted, depression, acceptance on good days. I blocked her on socials at first because seeing her face made me want to throw my phone across the room. Then I unblocked but muted because curiosity is a bitch. I haven't stalked her page, but sometimes mutual friends send me screenshots unprompted. Apparently she's taking time for herself, doing yoga, posting sunrise photos with captions about growth. Tom shows up in a couple of group pictures, always at the edge of the frame. No soft launch couple shots, no relationship status update. I don't know if the thing lasted past the AIBM or if it was exactly what she framed it as, a phase, a moment, a test she failed spectacularly. She texted me once, about a month after she moved out. Emma, I'm so sorry for everything. I hope you're okay. You didn't deserve any of it. I stared at it for a long time and then typed. Me, I know. And that was that. People keep telling me I dodged a bullet. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like I got shot and then someone said, well, hey, at least it could have hit your head. I get what they mean, but it doesn't erase the whole. I think the thing that messes with me most is how easily phase became her excuse for everything. It's just a phase to work awful hours and treat everyone like an inconvenience. It's just a phase to flirt too close to the line with a coworker. It's just a phase to book a secret weekend away and act like I was the controlling one for objecting. Calling it a phase made it sound temporary, inevitable, outside of her control. But a phase doesn't book accommodation, coordinate calendars, and pack an overnight bag. A phase doesn't send winky face emails. People do. I'm in therapy now, working through the whole "am I too controlling or did I ignore my own boundaries for too long" thing. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You're allowed to want boring loyalty. Stability isn't a flaw, it's a preference. I keep thinking about that late-night conversation in the library years ago, when she said she wanted movement, and I said I wanted a small apartment and a dog. We were honest with each other then. We just assumed love would bridge the gap between our visions. For a while it did, then it didn't. If there's a moral to this mess, besides log out of your email on shared devices, it's this: when someone tells you who they are and what they're afraid of, believe them. Don't assume they'll magically become a different person because you're safe or good for them. And don't let just a phase become the rug they sweep your pain under. As for me, I'm still in the apartment. The dent in the couch is deeper now because Bowie has claimed that spot as his throne. I moved some furniture around, repotted her plants so they wouldn't die out of spite, and bought a ridiculously bright yellow kettle just because it made me smile. Every now and then when I'm making dinner for one and the sun hits the balcony just right, I catch myself thinking, someone could be happy here. And for the first time in a long time, I don't automatically picture her. I picture someone who doesn't see stability as a cage, who doesn't need to test drive betrayal to appreciate what they have. Maybe that's my phase now, learning that boring is actually just another word for peaceful, and that I'd rather be alone in a quiet, honest life than share a noisy one with someone who keeps their suitcase half-packed for the next escape.